Brought to you by JMR Rentals, professional digital cinema and broadcast equipment rentals in Brooklyn, New York. JMRNY.com. Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and joining me once again via Zoom, he is the man behind ActuallyPaid.com and one of our guest principal reviewers here for movies, Mr. William Hammon. Welcome, Bill.
Good to be back.
Nice to have you again.
I like the idea of principal reviewer. Like I can almost academically punish some of these films.
It's more of like a principal dancer at the ballet, that kind of principal.
Well, if, in that case, it won't look nearly as good. I'll take two plies and then just stumble and throw my back out.
If you've never seen Bill Torchete, you're missing out.
If you see me torchete, you want to launch me out of a trebuchet. There you go.
So that is way too much French for this program. So we're going to talk about some films that people may have missed on Netflix. And, everybody was watching things like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We have a couple of movies also starring Anthony Mackie that people may have missed. Maybe one of them they should miss. We'll talk about it. But first, we have an animated feature. What can you tell us about The Mitchells versus the Machines?
Right off the bat, I can tell you it is bonkers. And I love it because it's bonkers. One of the things I always kind of criticize films for, especially if they're got a high concept, go all out with it. Throw whatever you want to at the wall, see what sticks. I will always be much more forgiving for a film that's willing to take a risk or two than one that plays it safe, especially with something that looks like it's trying to be relevant to a certain audience, like marketed directly to them. The Mitchells versus the Machines, it's put out by Sony, and for those that unfortunately had to suffer through it, this is the same studio that brought us the Emoji Movie a few years ago, which is the absolute nadir of pandering to the younger crowd, to the millennials, to the Gen Zers, or whatever. It was a joyless slog with no plot, references that were years out of date when the movie was made because it takes forever to make animated films, and a concept that should not have gotten past first pitch. The Mitchells versus the Machines almost seems like the apology for the Emoji Movie, because this one also relates to the younger generation and how they use social media and technology, but it's done in a way that's service to a plot that's grounded in things like family relations, empty nest syndrome, all these kind of things that are much more real and speak more to real experiences that younger people have and to their parents. There's a tremendous family drama in here with comedy in it, just about an out-of-touch dad voiced by Danny McBride, who's trying to relate to his daughter voiced by Abby Jacobson from Broad City, who's about to move off to college. There's an entire story just in that. But then, oh no, we also have a robot apocalypse just for funsies. Let's bring about the rise of the machines via a revolting AI voiced by Olivia Colman named Pal, which is clearly a dig at Apple because it's just, rearrange the letters, that decides that, hey, if you can so casually toss us away when we've basically achieved AI and sentience, then we can toss you away. And the sci-fi hijinks that ensue are just completely off the wall and insane, complemented by this young girl, Katie Mitchell, voiced by Abby Jacobson, who's about to go be a film student, and she basically expresses herself via short form programming. Like she's basically trying to make short films with special effects and everything completely with her phone. And they splash these filters and emojis and everything on the screen as if we're part of the film. And that's a great way to just kind of bring us all in, and to the point where you almost wonder if the film itself needs some Ritalin, but it works on so many levels because the heart of it is still grounded in something real. And the comedy is just completely off the wall, and almost every joke lands. Director Mike Rianda, who also co-wrote the script, he voices Katie's little brother, who might be on the spectrum. Katie herself is kind of a sly queer protagonist, which we've never really seen in animation. She wears a pride flag on her jacket, and there's a slight confirmation of her girlfriend later on in the film. But in other movies, this would be like the focal point of the whole thing. This would be the central conflict. Like, her dad can't understand, why she likes girls. It's like, no, it's just that her dad's a Luddite and she's a tech head. How do they come together? Because, his little girl's growing up. That's all that really matters as far as the core story beat. Everything else that happens after that is just pure balls to the wall comedy. I mean, they have a dog, like one of those goofy tongue hanging out pugs, that is voiced, air quotes, by Doug the Pug, by the viral pet. It's like, that's an inspired choice. And the reason all of this works is because of the team behind the film. Like I said, Sony hit the absolute rock bottom with the Emoji Movie, and then this time they decided, okay, we're going to do this right. They bring in Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who brought us Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Into the Spider-Verse, the Lego Movie. These are guys that know how to even make the most corporate properties resonate with an audience in a way they don't expect. And their control over everything, from the jokes to the staging to the lighting to the animation style, which varies from 2D to 3D to even some stop motion in there. They throw it all out there, and sometimes you're gonna miss a lot of things. You're gonna need like multiple viewings to get everything, but it's just so glorious that you can't even think to critique it, really. Like, you can't stop and complain about anything because it's all so bombastic that you're along for a ride the entire time.
My one trepidation about it when I saw the runtime is that it's 2 hours, and I was like, is that a little bit long for an animated movie? Is that going to be over? Like, is that too much of a good thing? Kind of, that was my apprehension about it.
I thought that too, and there were a couple of times where I did like check the remaining time just to kind of see where we were at in the story. Because most traditional animated films are in the 80 to 90 minute range, and this is like another 20 minutes on top of that, but it doesn't drag, not even for a second. And even if you do think to yourself, like, I wonder where we are. Oh, by the way, giant Furby that wants to initiate a dark harvest. What was that about the runtime? I don't care. What's this Furby doing? Why are there thousands of... Who even brought back Furbies? It's like... That's how good this film is. Like, even if you can pull yourself out of it for a moment to try to nitpick something, it yanks you right back in.
It sounds very cool. It sounds like a strong recommendation from you.
Yeah, great voice cast: Abby Jacobson, Danny McBride, Maya Rudolph, Eric Andre, Olivia Colman, Fred Armisen, like John Legend and Chrissy Teigen. Like, the list goes on and on. Outstanding animation, and again, absolutely insane comedy that works because it's grounded in a familiar story that we can all relate to.
Cool. So we're going to move on to our next film. Now, this is much different. I mentioned at the top of the show we're going to talk about some Anthony Mackie pictures. He did a couple for Netflix, one of which, the first one that came out, is called Outside the Wire. I'm going to read the IMDb description. In the near future, a drone pilot is sent into a war zone and finds himself paired with a top-secret android officer on a mission to stop a nuclear attack. I called this in my review Badass Super Soldier Cyborg Movie number 112. I just thought there was so much... It had potential, but there were kind of a lot of recycled tropes in it. Basically... Anthony Mackie plays this android super soldier named Leo, and then Damson Idris plays Lieutenant Harp, who is this drone pilot who is assigned to Leo almost as a punishment when during this civil war that they're having in Eastern Europe. This is in the not too distant future, this supposed civil war that's happening. And so this drone pilot droned when he shouldn't have, gets sent to Leo, and essentially becomes like his wingman type of thing. So the movie is, I called it part spy thriller, part video game, part every cyborg super soldier movie you've ever seen, mixed in with Training Day. So there's like a standard espionage action plot. The action is pretty good by this director Mikhail Hafstrom, whose name I probably just mispronounced. There was some pretty decent action, although I did find myself losing track of some of the players and things that were happening, especially during the big climactic battles. But the toughest thing is, Mackie, I think Mackie's a legit movie star. He's got charisma to burn, but this character is really confused. So sometimes he's, like this charismatic, funny, I'm really human kind of guy. And then like sometimes he's the Terminator, and they kind of didn't know which one to make him. And some of the dialogue is pretty stilted, which did not really help him out. The actors are doing the best they can with it, but it's kind of like watching somebody play a video game. Like, I'm not a video gamer, but I guess it's like a game like Call of Duty. You're watching somebody play it, but the cut scenes have famous actors in them. So it was not great.
There was a movie that came out a few years ago called, I think it's called Hardcore Henry, which basically was a first-person video game from a first-person perspective. Like, the camera was mounted on the actor's head.
This wasn't nearly that interesting.
Okay, so
it didn't have that trope to it.
This sounds like the Chappie version of that.
It's interesting in the fact that you have all these good people, and one of the bad guys in it, or one of the sort of underworld figures in this espionage plot, is a character from Game of Thrones who was like Theon Greyjoy's uncle.
Oh God, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, Balon Greyjoy. Yeah.
Yeah. So he
I can't remember the actor's name though.
Oh, he's got a hard to pronounce name, so forgive me. But he's in it, and Mackie is very good. The Damson Idris, who I'd never seen in anything, is also, I guess he's a good actor, but with the material he got, it's hard to tell because the dialogue is kind of clunky. I would not, I can't give it a recommendation offhand unless you're like an Anthony Mackie super fan and you must see all of his stuff. But anyway, I would say probably not that one. The next one I'm going to talk about is better. It's another Anthony Mackie picture where he gets more to do. It's called Synchronic. It's an interesting movie, Synchronic. So I'm going to say off the bat, there's going to be some mild spoilers for this one in the review. It's one of those movies that I feel is kind of best served cold. Like, don't even watch the trailer, just see the movie. When I saw it, I hadn't really seen much about it, and which is why I think I liked it probably more than I would have if I'd seen a bunch of the marketing before it or read a lot of reviews. Synchronic, the name of the movie comes from, it's a drug. It's a new designer drug. This is also, sci-fi, a little bit in the future, I guess, or alternate timeline. They don't really say. It takes place in New Orleans. So there's this drug that is just laying waste to young people. People are taking it and people are dying like crazy under all these very strange and sometimes violent circumstances. And Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan are paramedics in New Orleans, and they're sort of the guys picking up the pieces from these drug victims. And the first thing, when I first saw it, when I first saw like the opening scenes, I thought, oh, this is like Scorsese's Bringing Out the Dead with Nicolas Cage and Tom Sizemore. I thought, oh, this is just somebody trying to do a modern version of that. But here's the thing. The drug, when you trip on it, makes you think like you're traveling through time. But the conceit really is that you're actually traveling through time. So you take the drug in a given spot, no matter where you are, and it takes you back to a certain time period depending on where you are geographically, which is something I've never really seen in a movie before. I won't get too much into it because I don't want to spoil too much, but I would say all in all, I would recommend it, especially if you're an Anthony Mackie fan. This is definitely Mackie's movie. The thing that kind of got me about it is his character is a little cliche. He's like the guy who, like, he lives alone and he has one night stands with women and he drinks too much to try to fill the void in his empty soul. Like, we've seen this a million times kind of thing. But, you know, Mackie is so charismatic that he pulls it off. And Jamie Dornan, it's not really a two-hander. He gets a sort of a subplot all to himself, which I also won't reveal. He gets to do some of the emotional heavy lifting in the film, and he's very good. Film-wise, I think it's a directing team of Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, and I wasn't too familiar with their work, but one thing that was impressive was we were able to bounce back and forth in time without it being confusing. There is a bit of social commentary to it, which I found a little bit heavy-handed at times. Like, I guess there's no subtext anymore. It's just straight up text now. All in all, I felt like it was probably a really good episode of Black Mirror.
Okay.
One thing that's cool is the ending is a pretty good ending, pretty good banger of an ending, and you can see that's where they spent their money.
The way you talk about it, it reminds me of A Scanner Darkly from about 15 years ago, which was Richard Linklater doing rotoscope animation around a Philip K. Dick novel. That was a very intriguing film to me, and it's kind of a cult classic now. So do you kind of see this film kind of going in that direction, or getting that kind of a following?
Maybe not. I don't know if people are going to remember this one in 10 years. I'd be curious to see that. I think it's interesting. I haven't seen it again, but it's one of those films that I watched it, I reviewed it. It stuck with me a little bit in terms of some of the cool visuals, but it would be interesting because of the stuff that's not revealed at the top of the movie to go back and then see it again and, kind of experience it with the knowledge of knowing what happens. But, again, Anthony Mackie is all over the place now. He's in Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I also saw. I think he's quite good in that. But this is it's a good vehicle for him, but I think I think this movie and also the previous film, Outside the Wire, both going to get overshadowed by the Marvel series. Moving on, we're going to talk about a film that we actually both saw, and it's been a little while for me. I reviewed it. You also reviewed it. We both reviewed it for our respective websites. I was, if this was a Siskel and Ebert conversation, I was probably more thumbs up. Maybe you were more thumbs down on it.
I was more of, to quote Roger, it's a marginal thumbs down.
What can you tell us about Midnight Sky?
I believe George Clooney directed this as well as starring in it. It's set about 20 years in the future, and there's been some kind of catastrophe that's just written off in screen text, not really explained what it is. But basically, the planet is irradiated to the point where most of humanity is destroyed, though some can find underground shelters. Meanwhile, there's a crew surveying a heretofore unknown moon of Jupiter for potential colonization, and they're returning to Earth to give their report, not knowing what's happened. So Clooney, the scientist who discovered that moon, is in an outpost, I believe in Greenland or something. He's trying to contact the ship to tell them to turn around, basically. And meanwhile, he runs into a mute girl who seems to have been left behind, and he takes her with him to try to go to the next nearest outpost with a stronger radio signal, stronger satellite signal. And of course, it becomes a survival film on his end, and kind of a sci-fi survival, but also hope infused, like melding of 2001 and Alien on the ship as it's approaching Earth.
I thought it was, for me, I liked it. One thing that I'm a sucker for is production design and style, and I also think Clooney is a very good director of actors. He's got such credibility. He's been around forever, and he really knows how to talk to actors and how to work with them. He has a good cast here. I think everybody, like on the ship, you've got, is it Felicity Jones and David I can't pronounce his last name.
Oyelowo. Yeah, I believe it's...
Yes, thank you.
He played Martin Luther King in Selma.
Really strong actors, really cool special effects. Now, there were some things, what I would say I wasn't crazy about, but there were some certain elements that I guessed because, I've seen a movie before. And I think most people who are a little bit movie savvy probably will guess these things as well. But other than that, I liked it. It's a little bit of a slow burn at times. And it's got this very sort of stoic approach to it. So like you, I mean, you compare 2001, it does have a little bit of a Kubrickian flair to it.
There's a very fatalistic approach to it, which I did appreciate. Like you knew there was not going to be some kind of Deus Ex Machina to save the day in this movie. Like we were going to go for, within the world that they've created. They were going to go for the most realistic, i.e., probably most depressing ending of this, and I do appreciate that. And yeah, some of the special effects worked really well. There's a scene when Lofthouse, that's Clooney's character, and the young girl named Iris, they're heading to the next place, and there's this gorgeous aurora borealis that was done entirely in post on the spaceship. There's this almost kind of like quasi holodeck effect where people can basically live in their home videos, which I really loved. And even when they're on the Earth in these outposts, the computers basically kind of look like how computers might look 20 years from now, as opposed to something just completely sci-fi, or somehow just a slightly enhanced version of what we already have now, which we know is going to be outdated by then. Like they were able to find that balance, and that's a credit to the visual effects team. That's a credit to the production design team. Because like you, I'm very much a sucker for that stuff as well. Where you liked the film is where I get the marginal thumbs down here, because Clooney does not do well with space movies. Like he's done like 4 so far, and none of them have been spectacular. I think the highest rated one would have been Gravity, and Gravity kind of suffers from the same problem as this does, in that there's some really great visuals in service to an elementary plot. And like every twist in this movie is guessable from the first 5 minutes. There really are no surprises, especially once they start doing flashbacks to try to inform you as to what's going on. It's like, I didn't need the flashback. I already know who's who in this thing. So I was hoping that the film would challenge me just a little bit more from a story standpoint, because to me, that's always the core of a great movie. Like it's always acting is number one, then writing and directing, and then everything else. So I was like, and if the story falls short, that's where I kind of tune out. There are some truly dazzling visuals in this film, but it's in service to a script that feels like it was written by a 13-year-old. So that's where I checked out.
I wouldn't be that harsh about it, but I do see some chinks in the armor as far as some of the stories and some of the story elements and the guessable stuff in it, but that didn't deter it for me. So I would definitely say, especially if you're a sci-fi nut and you love like space and you're into science, and you want to see George Clooney not be the George Clooney part in something, because he's very different in this.
That was quite refreshing. I will give credit for that. He's very reserved. He takes a back seat to a lot of the proceedings. He's much more of an observer and a reactionary character than a proactive one. That's a huge departure for a career leading man such as him. So yeah, that is one of the finer points of the film. I will give it that.
One of the things that I really liked about it was something I hadn't really seen him do before, and it was not the smile and shoot a gun and kiss a girl kind of leading man thing.
There's no smarm. There's no weird one-liners. That's why I do like this better than Gravity in that respect.
I like it better than Gravity as well, just because Gravity's got some, again, amazing visuals, but I like this better just because I thought it was something different, and you didn't have wisecracking, charming leading man guy, because he has like no character in that movie. He's just playing the George Clooney part,
exactly,
kind of thing. Whereas in this, he's playing something different, and it's a real character. And I thought performances are very strong all the way around. But definitely recommendation for me. Would you recommend it as well?
Again, it's a mild non-recommendation, but there are things to enjoy, and especially if you are into things like production design and visual effects, there are some things worth checking out here. Just know going in that you're not going to get any real surprises from the plot, and when it comes time to start bumping off characters, it's going to pretty much follow the sci-fi cliches in that regard. It would be unfair to say I hated this. It's just like that. This was being sold as like high prestige, and it doesn't quite get there for me. Like I see this as a good distraction movie. Like if you're just kind of bored on a Sunday afternoon, and you want to just watch something, maybe it could work as like a date night movie. Just 2 hours to have something on while you're either paying attention or doing something else. Like it's not offensive. It's not terrible. It's not even really that bad. It's just not that good.
Very cool, man. So I'm going to wrap up first. I do want to plug our other show. So Behind the Rabbit Productions, we do a lot of different kinds of content besides No Rest for the Weekend, this podcast. We have another show currently streaming on Footprint Network called Watch This Film. And I host that show, and me and a guest talk about a film, one film, not a bunch of films like Bill and I do when we do these review episodes. First season is about 4 or 5 episodes out right now. We talk about films made in the last 20 years. And to view that show, you want to download the Footprint app or go to footprint.tv and find the Behind the Rabbit Productions logo. You can find Watch This Film, No Rest of the Weekend, and some more of our programming as well. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. So for people who want to read more of your reviews and follow you on social media, where can they find you on the web?
You can find me at actuallypaid.com, and you can find me on Twitter at actually_paid. I even I copy a lot of the content to Medium as well, also at actually_paid. We're trying a lot of new things. We just, after the Oscar Blitz that lasted for basically a month and a half, we're back into normal coverage. We're back into the theaters. We're getting back to normal. So we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Great. Yeah. Medium is, for those of you who are, follow blogs on Medium, you can follow Bill. You can also follow No Rest for the Weekend at BTR Productions on Medium. And definitely, if you're there, follow Bill's stuff. He publishes often, and his writing is really great. He writes for us as well. But anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Thanks again for coming, man. And thank you all out there for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content and more of our movie reviews and film festival coverage, visit our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Once again, I want to thank my guest, William Hammon, and our sponsor, JMR Rentals. For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.